Dear students, in our previous class, we learned about primary sector, that is, in relation to Indian economy, or we can also call Indian economy primary sector, in which we learned meaning of the term primary sector and also occupations which are included under primary sector and importance of agriculture. So today, let us move on to a new heading, what we have as factors responsible for the problems of Indian agriculture. Just observe the heading, problems of Indian agriculture. With reference to this heading, clear? Observe these pictures carefully. The very first picture, use of traditional technology. And here, the lands which have been subdivided, small land holdings, and a farmer who is expecting rainfall. That means he has no access to irrigation and instead he is dependent on monsoon. And the fourth picture denote the poor farmers who are borrowing from the rich money lenders at high rate of interest. And the fifth one indicate the storage, that is lack of storage in unscientific way storing the goods and inadequate marketing. So focusing on these problems, we are going to discuss in detail, clear, about the problems faced by Indian agriculture. In fact, this question can also be asked, what are the causes for the backwardness of Indian agriculture? Please keep it in mind. Either they may use about backwardness of Indian agriculture or problems. So anyway, the answer remains the same. Let us discuss them, each one of them in detail. First point A. Use of traditional technology. In many cases, Indian farmers followed and still following some primitive methods of cultivation. When I say primitive methods of cultivation, they are dependent on age old methods and they are more dependent on manual power than the mechanical power or agricultural technology. Even till today, they use many traditional implements such as wooden plow, and then bullock power, traditional varieties of seeds. If a farmer depends on such what you call traditional methods like wooden plow, bullock power, or traditional variety of seeds, of course, the yield or the productivity in agriculture decreases. If they use better quality seeds or HYVS, this word HYVS is not a new word, high yielding variety of seeds. Clear? The productivity can be increased. Instead of using the traditional methods, provided they use quality seeds or HYVS or what we call them as hybrid seeds, the productivity can be increased. In many cases, the poor farmers fail to purchase improved implements. When I say fail to purchase, because of poverty, they are not in a position to afford to the modern implements like tractors, tillers, threshers, harvesters, pump sets, etc. So first of all, the condition will not allow them to purchase these implements. So that's why they are dependent on traditional methods. As a result of this, they fail to reap the benefits. The word reap, they fail to get the benefits of improved methods of cultivation. Though there's a scope for adopting and modernizing agriculture by adopting improved methods, but they're not doing so because poverty is an obstacle in modernizing Indian agriculture. Come back to point B, that is small and fragmented lands. The average size of landholdings in India is less than 2 hectares. Here, one term hectare. Hectare is a larger unit than acre. We say 1 hectare is equal to 2.47 acres, roughly 2.5 acres. That means 2 hectares is equal to 5 acres roughly. The small landholdings can never be regarded as economic holding. See, an economic holding is one which enable the farmer to earn sufficient income after deducting the cultivation cost. Let us say if a farmer incurs cultivation cost of around 8,000, assume, then after harvesting he disposes the goods, the surplus goods in the market and gets around 16,000. So out of the 16,000, he has to deduct the cultivation cost, left out 8,000 if it is sufficient for himself and his family to maintain at a reasonable comfort, then you call it as economic holding. Or in a most simplest way, you can mention, define like this. Observe here, third line. Economic holding implies that size of land holding which supplies a farmer's family with necessary food grains, not only for domestic consumption but for market sale. See, if any particular land, clear, supplies a farmer's family with sufficient food grains, clear, not only for their own domestic consumption, even for market sale, then it is called economic holding. But most of the cases in India, the lands, especially small and marginal farmers, they have fragmented small land holdings. Why these fragmented lands occur? Observe, due to increasing population and law of inheritance. Because of these two reasons, the lands get divided, clear, and this creates subdivision and fragmentation of lands. That means as a generation passes, the lands, clear, will be divided among the succeeding generations. As a result, the lands get divided and subdivided into small land holdings. Then, as a result of this, two small plots are created. Very tiny or small plots are created. It becomes difficult for them to adopt scientific methods. When the land itself is very small, scientific methods of cultivation they cannot adopt in such a tiny plots, as they are scattered. When I say scattered, they are not located in one place. They are scattered in different places. The farmers have to invest considerable time and energy in transporting seeds, fertilizers, implements from one plot to another. Suppose if a farmer has 4 acres of land, they are scattered in 4 different places. When he has to manage cultivation in all the 4 lands, then he has to transport the seeds, fertilizers, and implements from one plot of land to another. This will lead to waste of time. Then come to point C. Inadequate irrigation or dependence on monsoon. See, most of the farmers in India, they are directly dependent on monsoon or rainfall, and they do not have access to irrigation. Then what is irrigation? Artificial supply of water for agriculture, we call it as irrigation. Observe this point C, clear. Indian agriculture depends on vagaries of monsoon. When I say use the word vagaries, uncertainties of monsoon. Rainfall in India is seasonal, uncertain, and unevenly distributed. Observe this, seasonal, uncertain, and unevenly distributed. Seasonal in the sense that it's bound to occur only in a particular season. Let us say June, July, August, September. In a year, 4 months, we call it as rainy season or southwest monsoon season. That's why we observe, we call rainfall in India is seasonal. Uncertain, no guarantee. It may rain or it may not rain. Unevenly distributed. When I say unevenly distributed, not equally distributed throughout the year. In arid and semi-arid regions, when I use the word arid and semi-arid, arid stands for dry. In dry regions, the incidence of crop failure is mainly due to inadequate rainfall. See, since it is a arid region, dry region, there is no sufficient rainfall. Agriculture fails due to clear lack of sufficient rainfall. and drought conditions occur. Drought, other word, famine. Famine conditions occur. Sometimes there may be heavy rainfall which create floods. Sometimes there may be scanty rainfall which leads to droughts or famines. See, both the conditions happen. Sometimes the monsoon may start too early. Sometimes it may start too late. Heavy rainfall, it may create floods, or scanty rainfall leads to droughts or famines. So droughts and famines are very common, and hence Indian agriculture is subjected to clear the what you call vagaries of monsoon. That's why we say Indian agriculture is called as gamble with the monsoon. That means focus this word gamble with the monsoon, which means farmer is not sure whether he is going to gain from agriculture or lose. Come to point D. Lack of rural credit facilities, credit, loan, financial assistance. Indian farmers are poor, they are financially weak, and they have to borrow large amount of money from money lenders. See, in order to make their agricultural activities and cultivation work clear in a smooth manner to proceed, they need the finance. See, no activity, no business activity, or no production activity can be carried or developed without adequate fund. Fund or finance is very important. They cannot clear off their loans. They borrow, but they are not able to repay. Clear off means they are not able to repay in due time, either because of loan amount is very large or the agricultural output is not sufficient enough to pay their debt. Fine. They borrow money from the money lenders at high rate of interest, but they are not able to clear off. Clear off means they are not able to repay it. Either the loan amount is very big, huge amount, or agricultural output is not sufficient to pay their debt. Debt stands for DEBT, debt stands for loan. Hence, it is said that Indian farmers born in debt, live in debt, and die in debt. Observe this statement very carefully. Indian farmers born in debt, live in debt, and dies in debt. That means throughout their lifetime they are not able to repay the loan. As a result, they'll be caught in the debt trap. Indian farmers depend on non-institutional sources of credit. Now, a question arises, sir, what exactly the term non-institutional source mean? Of course, to know the meaning of non institutional sources, it is very essential for us to know institutional sources meaning. Let us learn the differences between institutional and non institutional sources with examples. You observe this table carefully. There are 3 points. I have listed 3 points here. All the 3 points you observe clear, and let us compare institutional and non institutional detailedly. Observe the very first point, left hand side. The rural credit originating from sources like commercial banks, cooperative banks, regional rural banks, etc., are considered as institutional sources. See, if you observe this complete statement, you will come to know that rural credit, that means if the farmers get the loans from banks like commercial, cooperative, or regional rural banks, then we call it as institutional source because they borrow money from an institution. Whereas the other side, right hand side, observe the rural credit originating from sources like rural money lenders, traders, relatives, friends, etc., are considered as non institutional sources. In this case, the farmers do not borrow from institution. Instead, they borrow from individuals like rural money lenders, traders, relatives, friends, etc. Then, so the only difference between these two, in the first case, they borrow from the institutions. That's why we call institutional. Which are those institutions? Banks. like commercial, cooperative, regional, rural, etc. But here, from individuals like traders, relatives, friends, money lenders, from them they borrow. First, the meaning clear. Then come back to second. They are under the control of central bank or RBI. Remember, whatever the banks that you have mentioned in the left hand side, that are completely under the control of RBI or central bank. Whereas the non-institutional sources, whatever the names you have mentioned, individuals, they are not under the control of central bank or RBI. Third, they charge comparatively low rate of interest. See, these institutional sources, the banks when they lend, as they are subjected to government control, they cannot charge high rates of interest. Instead, they charge comparatively low rate of interest as guided by the central bank. Whereas the right hand side, non-institutional sources are individuals, they charge very high rates of interest. That's why we say they are very expensive and exploitative. When I say expensive, they charge high rates of interest. That's why they are exploitative. And as they charge high rate of interest. Now let us move on to point E. Inadequate warehousing. See, remember the word warehousing stands for storage facilities. See, most of the farmers they are not getting adequate storage, sufficient storage facilities. So this is also one of the problem or a reason for the backwardness. Let us discuss this point in detail. Observe. Most of the farmers do not have scientific storage facilities. Generally, they store their produce in carts, pits, and kacha warehouses. That means they store their grains or the agricultural products in an unscientific way, such as carts, clear underground pits, and kacha storehouses. So, major part of their grains are lost due to dampness, rats, ants, etc. Here, the term dampness refers to moisture content. So, most of the agricultural, what you call produce, get destroyed due to moisture content, or they may get destroyed due to clear rats, ants, etc. An estimate shows that annually about 10 to 20% of the agricultural produce is destroyed in this way. Due to inadequate storage or warehousing, the farmers are forced to sell their products immediately after harvesting. See, when they're forced to sell the products immediately after harvesting, we call it as distressed sale. Sometimes they may ask you this question for 1 mark. What do you mean by distressed sale? Forced sales are called distressed sale. As a result, they do not get fair price for their produce, and this will be a disincentive to the farmers. When they are not able to get good, clear price or remunerative prices, clear, the farmers get what you call a disincentive, or they'll feel what you call disappointed. Come to point F. Inadequate marketing facilities. Due to the absence of marketing facilities and marketing information, see, marketing information also plays a vital role. From time to time, they should get information about the prices, but they are not able to get. The farmers try to sell their products to local merchants, money lenders, commission agents, etc., who exploit the farmers. Prevailing price in the market will be different, but these money lenders or merchants or commission agents purchase the products from the farmers at comparatively low prices and exploit them. As farmers do not have any other option, when no option is left, clear, they have to accept whatever the price offered to them by the local traders. Furthermore, arrangements for grading and standardization. See, grading and standardization mean classifying the produce according to, I repeat, classifying the produce according to the quality of products are not adequate. There's a little correlation between different crops and qualities or varieties of these products. Then, illiterate, ignorant farmers find it difficult. See, most of the farmers in India, they're illiterate, ignorant, and they feel and they find it very difficult to secure high prices for their superior quality of products. See, the products are superior, better quality, but they're not able to get good price, remunerative prices for their products, so they feel that it is a disincentive, and they may not take what you call sufficient, what you call motivation to work further. This will discourage the farmers. Thank you.